Yeah, welcome everyone to our weekly Farbrengen. We're today's Ches Chesh and going to Tes Chesh, and I'd like to mention our give a great Mazel Tov wish to our host, Moshe Frank, on the birthday of his son Simcha. May he bring him a lot of Simcha, Begashmius, Bruchnius, no good thing.
And his namesake.
And his namesake, yeah.
Should at least be, couple percent of the namesake?
He should be saying that our sages tell us that every Jew has to say, Masa Yagiu Maisai Lamaisi Avesi. Will my actions reach the actions of my fathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? So there's a famous word that our sages, the Rebbe mentioned many times, that the term touch, Yagiu, literally the word Yagiu means to reach, but Yagiu could also mean to touch. Unridden, the Rebbe would refer to Lekutei Torah Pasha Shmir, that Rebbe uses the word unridden, to touch. So a person doesn't, one thing is a person should aspire to reach Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That maybe is hard to explain, but a person should at least touch. He should have a negia, he should reach, he should get somewhere close, he should call it that, he's touching Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So your son should touch his namesake, even more than touch, he should reach there. And yeah, anyway.
And also his namesake too, a touch.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're holding by Parshas Lech Lecha, and Parshas Lech Lecha is the week when everything starts in full operation, holding after Zayin Chesh. We're doing the Rebbe's years of Farbrengens. So Tishrei was over, never over. Tishrei lasted through the year, but usually there were certain years, the Shabbos Parshas Lech Lecha was a time that the Rebbe, if the Rebbe felt that any individual or any group of people needed to be put into perspective, so Shabbos Lech Lecha.
What do you mean put into perspective?
Certain people that the Rebbe felt that they weren't doing their job, they had things to do. So Parshas Lech Lecha was the week. A lot of years the Rebbe would so to say lace it in a bit, So in other words, I heard the explanation. I can't tell you what the explanation is, but Tishrei, you're involved in holy matters. Bereishis, and the Lech Lecha means gay. Avraham is sent on the mission. This is when the avoid of the year, you're ready, you hit the road. Lech Lecha, you're going to yourself, or for yourself, you're on your own maybe. You're not on, a Jew is never on his own. But Lech Lecha, a Jew has to go by himself. When you hit the road, that's the time to, to look over, you turn back to the, to the perspective, the outline of what the operations are supposed to be. So Lech Lecha was the week the Rebbe would lace it in sometimes, year after year. You could learn the Farbrengens, you'll see for yourself. So at any rate, so the Nekuda is that Lech Lecha is the time that we're back into full swing of things. But Bereishis is the creation of the world, Noach is a Mabul, but Lech Lecha we go with Avraham Avinu. Every day we go to Avraham Avinu. And Avraham Avinu was Lech Lecha. Avraham Avinu accomplished Lech Lecha every day of his life. And throughout all the tests, we think, people always say, I had a writer who was writing a book about someone, so he said that he doesn't like the way books are written about people today. Why? He said they make people look like angels. You always, when you write a book about someone, you always try to bring out, between you and me and the lamppost, we all knew this person, he was alive, and this issue, that issue. When you write a book about someone, you always write a book to describe him as an angel. So he said that he Bashita, when he writes books about people, he doesn't like doing that. He likes to bring out exactly their human side, for better, for worse, because he doesn't think people could learn from angels. People are interested in hearing that the other person was an angel. So Avraham Avinu was Taker Merkav, he was holy, he was in a much higher level. But nevertheless, keep in mind that the others, they had great accomplishments, but technically they didn't grow up. We don't necessarily see the backdrop of society. A person says, how could I live in such a corrupt, moral place like the United States of America, Brooklyn, New York, in the year 2021? The truth is, the Jewish people were in Egypt for a few hundred years in worse places. Avraham Avinu grew up in Orkastin, in Haran. His own father, not only that, the Rambam writes that Avraham Avinu originally as a child worshipped Avodah Zarah together with his parents. Before he was old enough to think. He followed along, and then he started thinking, and he was called an Ivri. The real name for the early Jews.
The Hebrews.
The Hebrews. What does the Hebrew come from? Hebrew comes from the word ivri. What does ivri mean? Ivri literally means the other side. So simply means was the other side of the river. The other side of the Euphrates River. Iver Hanor. But the Chachamim tell us the whole world was on one side, and Avram was on the other side.
He went completely against
You know, like the story of the guy that was driving his car. He's driving his car on the road and he's going against traffic. So his wife calls him up. He says, "I hear that there's emergency thing, that there's a guy going on the highway the wrong way. Everyone should be careful." So his wife, "I don't know what you're talking about. Everyone else is going the wrong way." In the sense, Avram Avinu, he went against the whole world. What? Again, he went. The Mishnah spoke about him. He wasn't his fault. Against the grain. That's why he's called Avram HaIvri, the first Jew. The whole world is corrupt, morally, physically, spiritually. You have Stoim and Amoira, and which we speak about in next week's Seder, which you don't need to elaborate how they were corrupt in all aspects. And you had Loit and his own relatives had, but at his Nishnas Bolgavad, he didn't bother. As the people think, the good old days, there's no good old days. Avram Avinu, he grew up, that's the way it was. The Eibishter, furthermore, the Eibishter tells Avram Avinu, at Lech, I know what Lech means.
What's mean this, no?
They're gay there. Right, so the gay there, a person in Yiddish is a word, the gain the yodin. How do you translate it in English?
The years are gone or
no,
gone?
they're gain yodin. When you make someone's life miserable, you say they're gain yodin, like you're getting into him. You're like giving it into him. Anyway, so Lech Lecha means to get into yourself. Go into yourself. It's uncomfortable sometimes. You have to rub yourself. A person goes through different things in life. Life could be very challenging. It is. That could be. So the Nikud is, a person has two ways of looking. One way of looking at it is that he's losing himself. Who am I? What am I? Today there's an identity crisis. You don't know if you're this, if you're that. But the avoid of a Yid is that Lech Lecha, he has to leave behind everything in his comfort zone of Kedusha. And through that, he figures out who he really is. Person today, the Hana today, people, one of the biggest challenges to living a religious life is that people say, I don't connect to it. Yeah, I believed it was Avram, it was Yitzchak, Yaakov. It doesn't talk to me, it doesn't connect to me. It's not who I am. So the answer is that's not true. That's not who you think you are. But that's why the first Jew, how did he become the first Jew? Because he left behind who he was, and then he realized who he really was. It was Lech Lecha. A person has to take a journey to get into himself. Along that journey, he has to forget about how he feels. In order to discover his inner self, he might have to go through periods of time that he might be questioning where he's going. Avram didn't even know where he was going. Imagine going in a taxi. He asks me, "You have no idea where I'm going." Just right. Maybe she told him, "I'll show you." He doesn't know where he's going. But nevertheless, this is the avodah. But Asherek also means that I will show you, I will reveal who you really are. So Avram Avinu, because he left behind everything, because he left his own seichel, midas, whatever it is, he reached his inner self. Same thing as every Jew. Lech Lecha means two things. It means from one hand, it's a very big demand. Lech Lecha means go. They tell the guy, kick him out of his house. Gay goes in we're at, just go. I'll show you. You'll rely on me. The other hand, the journey of Lech Lecha is the biggest, most deepest journey. A person is reaching into his true essence. And that's the first Nikud, the Parshas Lech Lecha. Then we have, later on, there's a number of different things that's going on. But one of the fundamental things in this week's Parsha is the Bris Ben Absarim. Bris Ben Absarim is a covenant Eibishter made with Avram Avinu, in which he promised him Eretz Yisrael. And in that whole covenant, he speaks to him about Goldos and Geula, how the Yidden will be enslaved to Mitzrayim and to the nations afterwards. And he says that eventually the Yidden will leave with the Rechush Gadol, with the great wealth. You hear Moshe, great wealth. That was promised by the Bris Ben Absarim.
Is it physical or spiritual?
Both. They both go together. Kipshutai.
Half of it, the great paintings was Mukuyim.
Yeah. So what's the Nekudah? So the Rebbe says, the Gemara says that Yidden were, when Eibishter came to take Yidden out of Mitzrayim, so Yidden says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, go borrow gold and silver, right? Yidden said, or Moshe, whatever, let's get out of here already. We have to stay longer in Galus to get to the Rechush Gadol. So the Eibusha said, I don't want Avram to have any complaints. I told them that they'll get to the Rechush Gadol, I want them to have a Rechush Gadol. But anyway, the Rabbi speaks about this. Nekuda is, Galus has a purpose. And the purpose is not accomplished. A person, it's not enough to leave Galus. The point is that you should transform the Galus to Kedush. You should use it, turn it into great wealth. A person will say, I have a tzada. Lamer pater veda, that's true. When a person is put in the situation, he has great wealth that he can gain out of it. And if you look ahead, so use it, so take out what you could. But anyway, the nekuda is that the David made a covenant with Avram Avinu. Made a bris with Abasarim. So to at the end of the Pasha, we speak about how David made a bris, kipshuta, he made a covenant, a physical covenant in his flesh. He didn't have a bris meal. He didn't have a bris, a covenant, the something which is beyond intellect. The connection the Yid has with the Eibush, the whole avodah of Avram Avinu, there's two parts of the avodah of Avram Avinu. There's the avodah of Avram Avinu that he used his intellect. Avram was very smart. He was able to take on the whole world and then debate them, and I'm sure that in those days on YouTube channel you had Avram versus this and that. Avram debated. He didn't just take a gun to everyone's head and say believe in the Eibush. He proved to them with proofs that he used intellectual proofs to prove to the avodah zara. There's an Eibush, and the avodah zara weren't necessarily primitive amateur idiots. They had a whole philosophy. They knew a little bit about spiritual things, and Avram dealt with them using intellect. And so Avram had his avodah, but nevertheless, what makes him a Jew is not the fact that he was very smart and he realized the Eibush. What makes him a Jew is the connection to the Eibush which is beyond intellect. That's the essence of a Yid. And the Rabbi explains that a Yid has to use his intellect, no question about it, but his intellect is a preparation, just he has to do what he could do with his intellect. But that's only that he should be in a state that the Eibush could then connect him in a way which is above intellect. Using your intellect just because it has to be a shleimus of your avodah. You have to do what you could do mitzad your own intellect. But what's the ultimate nekuda of a Yid? Mesiras nefesh, above seichel. And the same thing is when it comes to Torah, the Rebbe had a yechidus with I forget who it was. The Rebbe said that those people that kochen just really try to understand the seichel of Torah, and the Rebbe used the expression that I amongst them see that the amount of things in Torah that they could understand, if I remember correctly, something along those lines, is insignificant. The amount of is incomparable things of Torah that you still don't understand. In other words, those that taka feel that they have the grecht mit seichel, they're able to understand certain aspects of Torah, they realize that there's much more that they don't understand. So human intellect, we need to use human intellect, but sometimes we get stuck with that human intellect. In other words, we have to have everything figured out. If you don't have everything figured out, you can't move forward. But the secret of a Jew is that he doesn't have to have everything figured out. He has to try to figure things out, but there's nasa before nishma. He goes ahead. This is the secret of Avram Avinu. When the Lech, so this is the nekuda. Das is the nekuda from Lech. A person has to gain the eigene yodin. The person has to really go into himself a little bit, and to go into yourself means the opposite of the modern approach is that this is how I feel. This is how I identify. So there's no need for me to change. Not only is no need to change. If I feel this is who I am, then I'm not allowed to change. This becomes sanctified and holy. It becomes a principle of faith. And however I feel I am and I identify, that's who I am. But Torah says, no, Lech Lecha, you want to get into who you really are. The way you're born, it's not who you really are. It's when you work hard on yourself and you try to reveal what you really contain, that's Lech Lecha. And the Rebbe speaks a lot in Pashas Lech Lecha Tavshnun Beis, the Indian of being Megala Koiches Na'olam, a person should reveal such inner character traits or qualities that he has, that it's a true chiddush, it's a true novelty. That's the famous story with the Netziv. Mentioned it here, I think maybe more than once maybe. Famous story with the Volozhin, the Netziv from Volozhin. You know the story with the Netziv of Volozhin? As a child in Cheder, he didn't really learn much. There came a time that Imamish wasn't learning well, and his father decided that he'll send him. He heard his father over tell his mother, that Naftali, whatever his name was, isn't capable of learning tomorrow. I'll bring him to the local town carpenter, and he'll learn how to be at least to learn a trade. That's what he worked in those days. You know, only kids are able to learn stayed in yeshiva. Otherwise, once they reach a certain age and they couldn't read or write, or that's all they were able to do.
Sounds like our Meisters.
Sounds like our Meisters.
It's like this competition.
Yeah. So Mela, so he overheard that. The mama shook him up to the court. That they Pasha gave up on him, will be a carpenter. So he goes to his father and he begs, please give me another chance. Kacha, he gave him another chance, and he grew up to be a Gadol B'Yisrael. He wrote many Svarim, the Hamek Davar, and the other famous Svarim. So he said later on in his life, he said that if his father would have taken him as a carpenter, and he would have become a carpenter, so after 120 years, he would go up to Maila, they would tell him, Naftali, where is the Hamek Davar? Where are all these Svarim that you're supposed to write? And he would say, I would have no clue what they're talking about. I'd never have expected that I should write those Svarim. But now, because Itake, you know, he was shaken up and he worked very hard on himself. So he became.
Where is the Hilchah Shabbos?
He became the Hamek Davar. Where's the Hamek Davar? Where's the Gelt? So you understand. So this is the Nekuda. So Lech Lecha, the Nekuda is that the person doesn't reveal who he is. The person starts off and says, "This is how I feel. That's who I am." It's not who you are. Who you are is when you go through challenges.
I'm a Rav in Hilchah Shabbos. Nicht kann account.
When you go through challenges and you go through different things and you say that this is that and you're able to bring out your deeper koiches, that's who you are. This is verdubis. Other things verdubis, how I feel like I am, what I like to be. That's not who you are. Who you are is what you don't imagine you are, and you have to work on yourself. You have to, you know. Some people there could be small things, pasha to be b'simcha. They couldn't imagine that they'll be b'simcha, or b'chul v'kayetze, just have a positive attitude, etc., etc. Everything is a halich. Everything would be a true growth. So this is the nekuda from Parshas Lech Lecha. And we should all merit that we should have the ultimate halicha. We should have the ultimate inner growth and inner awakening and inner transformation. And we should have the coming of Mashiach now. And it should be the Rechush Gadol, the Gashmis, Beruchnis, the great wealth, and all aspects. Take it from Yad Mama.
Amen.
Someone told me last week. Told me